Ag PhD full episodes and more are now available on Acres TV, the newest ag platform connecting you to fields of information. Look for us on watchacrestv.com.
During our Farm Basics time each week, we try to take something that we do here on the farm and talk especially to any non-farmers that are watching our show. Today, for example, we're going to talk a little about what is corn silage. So if you're a non-farmer, you probably have seen people out in their fields cutting silage, as we call it. Well, what does that mean exactly, and why do they do that versus harvesting like a lot of farmers do around the United States?
Yeah, a majority of the corn acres across the United States are harvested where just the grain leaves the field. Corn silage is different because almost the entire above ground portion of the plant leaves the field. Well, that's quite different, and as you can imagine, the management of that is much different than if you're just taking the grain.
So when grain harvest is happening, what farmers will do is let it hopefully naturally dry down in the field. And that basically means, like in our area, we're going to harvest grain in the middle of October, late October, maybe even November some years. Well, with silage, usually that moisture level that we want is whole different. So we want the plant wetter, we want the grain wetter, and typically in our area, corn silage is cut in late August or early September.
One of the reasons it's called silage is because those livestock producers are planning to ensile that grain. So basically they want to take it wet, chop it up really finely, and let it ferment, and that's going to protect it and keep it for the long term so they can feed it up for multiple years if necessary.
What we used to store silage in the old days was silos. Well, today you don't see a lot of farmers putting up silos because we have much bigger and better equipment, and we want to get a lot done in a short period of time. With a silo, you can only put so much in there. It was a lot of work to throw it way up into the top of the silo and have it fall down, and then over time we would take layers of that off. Now we see a lot of where basically people will pour 3 sides cement, and then they'll put silage in there, and then they'll cover it up and everything, and then every day they just go in there with a great big payloader and take silage out. But there are a lot of ways to do this. I'm just trying to say things have changed since when we were kids and you saw a lot of silos up around the United States.
Well, they'll pack that silage in, get all the oxygen out, get it to be an anaerobic environment so it can ensile. And yeah, it's quite a process. And as I mentioned, now you've got that whole plant there. So you've got really an almost complete food source for cattle that you're going to be feeding this to, where you've got the grain in there, but you've also got all that roughage and all the carbohydrates as well.
The other big thing for us as farmers, if we take silage off, we just know there's a lot less residue out in the field. So typically, like on our farm, we're going to be planting a cover crop right away after silage is cut. Whereas if it's grain corn, well, a lot of times we harvest the grain corn and the snow flies the next day, so there's no time to raise a cover crop. So it's definitely changed management practices on our own farm.
Oh, one last comment. You may think, oh man, they took the whole corn plant. No, they took about half the corn plant because the other half of the corn plant is below ground in a massive root system. And so even though you're taking off quite a bit of plant material, you're leaving a lot of plant material there in the field.
Well, I mentioned we will seed a cover crop right after silage. One of the reasons why we do that is to control our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?